What's up guys, my name's Derick and today I'm gonna talk about my experience quitting the Juul. And it's important to know I'm not trying to sell you anything, not trying to sell you a book or a course or receive any money for this. I really just wanna share my thoughts, some of the lessons that I've learned from my experience quitting over the last 2.5 months and hopefully inspire anybody who's trying to quit themselves. So I've been vaping and smoking cigarettes off and on for the past 8 years, and I finally quit 82 days ago. That was the last time that I took a hit of the Juul.
So I have this much left of my pod. Once I'm done with that, done completely. This is gonna be pretty rough, or it won't, but I'm gonna document it and see how it goes.
So it's day 82 and I feel great. I feel happy, I feel mentally sharper, I feel more productive, I feel healthy, and all the withdrawal symptoms are completely gone. I don't even think about nicotine at all. Even when I'm around my friends who still vape, I'm no longer triggered by them to the point where I feel a craving when I'm around them. It's kind of crazy how far and how different you feel after only 2.5 months. So if you're sitting here now, currently addicted, just imagine that this is your future self telling you how easy it is once you're 2.5 months into it. Before I get into how I quit, I want to talk about why I decided to quit vaping. It's interesting because with vaping, it's kind of a fuzzy area as opposed to smoking, where everybody knows, the data's out, that smoking causes cancer, makes your skin age faster, makes your teeth yellow. Nobody's out there arguing that smoking isn't bad for you. It's very common knowledge. So people oftentimes have a very strong why when they're quitting smoking. With vaping, however, the evidence out there and the studies are pretty contradictory. It's really easy to get confused. I mean, just do a Google search, just do a YouTube search, and you're gonna find people telling you different things. Some people saying that vaping is bad, and you're gonna have some people saying that vaping isn't that bad. It's only bad for you when it has vitamin E acetate in there, which caused all the deaths back in 2019, which caused a massive media scare. Or people will say that nicotine itself isn't bad for you. And as long as you know that you're getting good juice without random chemicals in there, then nicotine itself isn't bad for you. And look, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert on this subject or the leading researcher who's been able to compile and sift through all the data out there. But as you might be able to tell from the tone of this video, I'm a strong believer that vaping is bad for you. And if I was one of those less woke people on the internet who talks about things, I would probably at this point launch into my own montage of cherry-picked data confirming my own bias. But given that I am more woke than most individuals, I'm not gonna do that to you. Just kidding, I'm still gonna do that. So this is a study by the Biomedical Central Respiratory Research, and it's titled The Underestimated Danger of E-Cigarettes, also in the absence of nicotine. So for everybody saying, well, my e-cigarettes don't contain nicotine, well, this is for you too. And it says, in addition to the possible harmful effects of nicotine per se, the other main health concerns about electronic cigarette usage is the potential for toxic aldehyde emissions such as formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, propanol, and acrolein. I'm pretty sure you can imagine it's not good to be putting formaldehyde into your lungs. It also says EC smoking induces a signature of harm in the lung, which clearly challenges the concept that switching from traditional cigarettes to ECs is a healthier alternative, yada, yada, yada. Oxidative stress, depletion, inflammatory cytokines. This is a study that talks about how people who vape have higher levels of heavy metals in their blood. This isn't coming from the juice. This is actually coming from the coils. When they heat up, they release heavy metals, and then that gets into your bloodstream. And the metals that they're finding in elevated levels in people's bloodstream is aluminum, antimony, arsenic, cadmium, cobalt, chromium, copper, iron, lead, manganese, nickel, selenium, tin, and zinc. And obviously lead is toxic to your brain, so that's no good. This is the associated risk between depression and e-cigarette use, and it found a significant cross-sectional association between e-cigarette use and depression, just meaning that they're correlated and there could be a causal link there. Also, e-cigarette use increases susceptibility to bacterial infection. So that means the more you use the Juul, the more likely you are to get sick. Guys, I could keep going on and on, but I'm not gonna do that to you. So let's get back to me talking some more. So with all of that cherry-picked data aside, this is really not the point of this video. I really wanna speak today on my experience because that's something that I can talk truthfully about. I can say from first-person experience that I think vaping is worse for you than cigarettes. Now, I can already imagine the outrage of some people. All I can say is that when I was vaping, I felt way worse than when I was actually smoking cigarettes. And of course, when I'm doing neither of them, I feel way better than doing either. And I could speculate on the reasons why I think vaping affected me more negatively than smoking. I think one of the reasons is that with vaping, I did it constantly, right? Whenever I was inside, I was constantly hitting the Juul, going through way more nicotine. I was going through about 2 pods a day, which apparently is the equivalent of about 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And as with cigarettes, they get you outside, taking a 10-minute break to decompress. I think there is some therapeutic effect to that. I also think it's a good way to meet people. Asking somebody for a smoke is a great way to break the ice and then get into a conversation with somebody. But with vaping, you get none of that. There's no social benefit. You get no clarity of mind benefit because you're not going outside, you're not taking a break, you're just usually vaping through whatever task you're already doing. It's really just a way to constantly get into the habit of distracting yourself the second any uncomfortable feeling comes up. And while I was vaping, I felt way more depressed than when I stopped. And if you're still having doubts on whether or not vaping is actually bad for you, I want you to consider for a second, how could it be good for you? How could it be good to be inhaling this oil into your lungs all day long, every day, until you die? Vaping is not serving you. That is the addiction twisting your mind and convincing you that it is serving you. With all that aside, now I'm gonna get into how I quit vaping for 2.5 months. It actually took me a few times to quit. I would set the intention. I would say, okay, at the end of this pod, I'm not gonna buy another one. After that, I'm just done. I would get pretty close to the end. I would start freaking out. My imagination would start going crazy. How am I gonna survive without my nicotine? I'm gonna buy 2 more pods. I'm not quite ready. And then I'll buy 2 more pods. Same thing would happen at the end of that one. I'm like, okay, this is the time. I said it last time, but I'm serious this time. I'm gonna quit. Same thing would happen. I would maybe even reach the end of the pod, and then all of a sudden I would get a craving and I'd go back to the store. You always have some excuse. I'm like, oh, I got a big day of work. I can't afford to be irritable all day. So I think the hardest part for me was just legitimately getting to the end of that pod and saying, okay, this is the last one. I'm throwing it away, throwing away my Juul charger, and I'm setting the intention to actually never take another hit. That's one of the hardest parts, is just confronting the fear head on, because your imagination will get the best of you and it'll make the situation way worse than it actually is. And what I learned the first few days is all the withdrawals that I was dreading going through, they actually weren't that bad. Just kind of back to normal pretty quickly. The whole attitude I had is I didn't want to think about quitting as quitting. I wanted to frame it as I'm building good habits. I'm not quitting something, because the connotation with quitting is that you're getting rid of something, right? You're getting rid of this something that's serving you. There's nothing in place of that now. You just gotta deal with the world, but you don't have that anymore to soothe you. And instead of quitting something, you're not quitting anything, because nicotine never served you in the first place. When you reframe it in that way, it makes it easier, because every time you feel the craving, instead of hitting the nicotine and then getting that reward, whenever I would feel the craving, I would actually reframe that in my mind as me weakening those neural circuits that had a grip on me, that were controlling my behavior. I would literally envision my brain getting better and my brain getting stronger. And so whenever I'd feel that craving, instead of it being a negative craving, of me resisting this feeling, me suffering through this, it really became somewhat enjoyable, became rewarding. And that is the good habit to build, I think, is to totally reframe this in a positive light. And it's gonna be weird. Initially, you're gonna feel just like this void, because in conversation usually it's used as a coping mechanism. If there's ever silence or if ever you feel uncomfortable, you're gonna self-soothe. When you don't have that anymore, you're just kind of sitting there, and that cue happens where you feel uncomfortable, and then you feel the craving, and instead of soothing yourself with hitting the vape, you kind of just have to sit there, right? But if you reframe that craving as, this is me getting stronger, this is me getting one step closer to there not being a craving at all, then again, like I was saying, it becomes actually a pretty enjoyable experience. The crazy part is, after about 2 weeks of that, it really just becomes natural. And I think you sort of have to be careful because, like I said, when you quit, there's this void left where other habits can kind of sneak their way in. Like, I was tempted to grind my teeth, or constantly talking about quitting with anybody that would listen. I look at it as, hey, I'm trying to cut cold turkey. I'm trying to build all good habits. And so I made it a goal to not talk about quitting, and also to not replace it with anything, and to face the uncomfortable feeling head on. And so, like I was saying, I'm not an expert on this topic, but just these are some of my thoughts so far, being 82 days into this. I'm sure I'm gonna do another video in the future to talk about how I feel about this, maybe 6 months in, maybe a year in. I hope that this can inspire you to say, let's just do it, let's quit. It's not gonna be that bad. 99% of it is mental. A lot of it is that fear that's blowing it out of proportion and making it into something that it's not. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed the video, so go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment below if you're also trying to quit and if you're on your journey. And as always, keep it open-ended, and I'll see you next time.